do want to tell you a little bit about Mr. Gentry. As most of you probably know, he owns the Gentry Farm on Highway 96. Some of you have probably been out there. His son Alan and daughter-in-law Cindy run that in the fall and do field trips, and he helps with that. He also has summer camps that he does in the summer. He is an author. He's written a book, which I've read, and I think some of you have, about growing up in Franklin and his experiences in the war, and he's going to share some of those with you. He's also an artist. He drew the sketches in his book, and he's painted a lot of pictures. He's actually got out on the farm a place now where he paints a lot and has a lot of nice paintings out there. He's probably the best storyteller I've ever heard. I've been lucky enough to hear him speak several times, and even the stories that I've already heard, I'm still interested when I hear him again, just because he does such a great job in storytelling and makes it so interesting. And he has also just returned back from visiting Europe and going back to where he was there in the war, visiting some of those places, I think, for the first time since then. And I'm sure he's going to share that with us. I just want to tell you again how lucky we are to hear him, because the things that you've been studying, he was there when it happened. And he was a very young man, which is interesting to me, and I've asked him to talk about that, but it's just lucky that we can hear somebody that was there tell us firsthand what it was like and what he was thinking and what he felt, and I think it makes the history come alive. So if you will give a big Fairview Middle School welcome to my friend and my hero, Jimmy Gentry.
Thank you. I want to be as close to you as I can and see you at the same time. I want to ask you to do me a favor, and I really want you to do this. In just a minute, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. I'm going to ask you can rest your head in your hands if you want to, and then I want to talk to you a little while you have your eyes closed. So let's close our eyes, put your head down, have your eyes closed. Everybody, have your eyes closed, and just listen to me for a few minutes. I want you to pretend while you have your eyes closed. I want you to imagine that you're in school. And you say, well, I am in school, but no. You're in school now, it's about 1940, 1938, something like that, and you're in school. You probably walked to school this morning. You didn't have an automobile. You're living in a different time. You probably didn't wear the same type of clothes you have now. You're the same age. You're in the 8th grade. And you walk to school with your friends. You're having a great time at school. You're studying just like you do now. You're studying your arithmetic and your history and your English and all that sort of thing. It's no different, except this 1938, 1939. Wait, it's a long time ago. But yet, that's the era and time that I'm going to talk about. Very few automobiles, clothes are different. The most important thing to us then was growing up, studying, and then we began to play games. And now I want you can raise your head up, open your eyes. I hope you're back now into early times. You're back at the time when I was in the 8th grade, just like you. We did walk to school, and it was fun to walk to school because you got to be with your friends. You brought your lunch with you, wrapped in a newspaper, and the boys would usually wrap their lunches in the sports page. And we'd go to school like that. We didn't have cafeteria. It was a wonderful time, really, for us to live back in those days. I don't remember ever hearing of a murder or killing when I was in the 8th grade. That's different than it is now. I knew everybody in school, and everybody in school knew me. Not only did I know everybody in school, I knew everybody in the whole town. We were real close growing up like that. Now, you probably have a lot of fun, but I believe I had more fun than anybody. See, my daddy died when I was 12 years old and left my mother with 7 unmarried children, 9 of us in all, 5 boys and 4 girls. 2 of them had married, and he died when I'm 12. Then my mother raised us without any money. And the way we were able to make it was doing things like this. And I loved every minute of it. We learned to catch rabbits with our hands. Can you do that? Learn to catch squirrels with our hands. Catch fish with our hands. That was our food. It was fun. Every day we'd go out and do that. Just had a great time. Then as we grew a little bit older, we got some jobs that paid money. Now, got a little money. Then I learned to do something myself that really helped me. I learned to trap. I learned to trap animals, particularly muskrats and mink. And the reason it was so good for me to learn to trap muskrat and mink is, you see, when you catch one of those rascals, you can skin him, take his hide, his fur, or his pelt, and then you dry it really nice on a board, and you take it to Mr. Martin Torner and sell it to Mr. Torner. Now, it's important that you understand who Mr. Torner is now. Mr. Torner was one of only 3 Jewish people in Franklin. Mr. Torner. He was my friend. He bought my furs. He gave me some traps because I didn't have enough money. But I made enough money off of my muskrat and mink later on that I could buy all my clothes. My mother didn't have to buy clothes. Then I had enough money to give her a little money. And my brothers were doing something similar at the same time. A big night for us would be to go to the picture show. Usually we went on Saturday afternoon. You see, we didn't have television. We didn't have computers. We didn't have any of those things. But we had each other. And we had our countryside around us. It was a wonderful time to live. Now let me move on up. Now I'm in high school. By the time I get in high school, we had already learned to play football, basketball, and baseball. And that became important to me. So we would do that just like you do now, only it's just a different time. And we had some things in Franklin at that time that was a great place. It's not there now. We had a swimming pool. And you might say, whoopee, everybody got a swimming pool. But back then, didn't anybody have a swimming pool except Franklin had one. Not only did Franklin had a swimming pool, they had the best swimming pool in America. There were 2 pools about the size of this gymnasium, side by side, a little bit longer than this, as a matter of fact. Had willow trees around it, where it got its name, weeping willow trees around it. We called it Willow Plunge. It was fed by a spring. It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place. People came out of Nashville by the thousands to go swimming at Willow Plunge. It was a wonderful place. I got a job there. First I cut grass and picked up trash and bottles and that sort of thing. And as I grew older in high school, I became a lifeguard at the Willow Plunge. but I still was hunting and fishing. I was still trapping. All those sorts of things were happening to me at the same time. Just please, man, just sit down and thank you. So it was a great time. Now, I happen to come from a family that, as I said, my daddy died when I was 12, that had a mother. My mother was the most wonderful lady in the whole world. I wished everybody had a mother like my mom. She was a good one. I take that back. She wasn't a good one, she was a great one. She made us do things that we didn't want to do always, but she made us do it. And I'm sure glad she did. She taught us so many lessons. I hope that I can remember before I finish talking to you some things that she taught us. Well, I'll give you one now just to give you an idea of what she taught us and how she would do it. Now, she didn't have an education. She didn't even go to elementary school, but she knew how to raise children. I think that's her God-given instinct. And she used to do this. She would tell us, don't ever take the last biscuit. Don't take the last biscuit. And I didn't understand that for a long, long time because I wanted that last biscuit. I was still hungry maybe. But she wouldn't let you take the last biscuit. Give you an example of how that works. One morning, breakfast. Everybody's finished eating breakfast. There were 12 of us around the table. We get up to leave. There's one biscuit left. And I reached for the biscuit. My mama said, Jimmy, don't take the last biscuit. Don't ever take the last biscuit. I didn't understand that. And then I wondered who got the last biscuit. But where we lived at that time, there was a railroad track behind our house. And when she picked up the plate with the last biscuit on it, there's a knock at the back door. She goes to the back door and opens the door, and there stands a hobo, a poor man that you may call a street person today. He gets the last biscuit. There's always somebody that needs it worse than you do. That's what she taught me. Even today, I think about not taking the last biscuit. You see what simple life I was living back then, or we were living back then? A great life, really. We walked most everywhere we went. And then if you came to Franklin on a Sunday morning, likely you'd find everybody in Sunday school and church in those days. So that's where I want to go with you next. Let's go to Sunday school with me. And the church that we went to is still there. It's a different building. It's just just one building off of Main Street. So I was 16 now, 16 years old, and we had Sunday school. But between Sunday school and church, there was a period of about 20 or 30 minutes there before you start your church service. So we as teenagers would go around the corner to Main Street to White's drugstore. Now the drugstore was the only thing open on Sundays. Nothing else was open on Sundays. Just one drugstore in town. And this Sunday it was White's drugstore's turn to be open. So we go around to White's drugstore, 6, 8, or 10 of us, I don't remember how many. We were standing around drinking Coke, one of those soda fountain Coke. And there was a radio there. I still remember the shape of the radio. And so Mr. David Cook, you don't know Mr. David Cook, he's been dead a long time, but Mr. David Cook was behind the counter. He said, be quiet, shh. He got our attention. He said, listen. And he turned the radio up so we could hear. Now, for the first time, we heard that the Japanese had just bombed Pearl Harbor. That's December the 7th, 1941. And when we heard that, to tell you the truth, I didn't hardly know where Japan was. We put our unfinished Cokes down, and we walked out of the drugstore without saying a word because we knew what was going to happen. the United States declared war not only on Japan, but on Germany as well. We are now at war, World War II. Then as a 16-year-old, remember how old I am, 16, not a whole lot older than you, I witnessed the greatest display of patriotism this country has ever seen. I saw all the young men that were 2, 3, 4 years older than myself joining up to go to war. My brother was one of those. He was 18 months older than me, so he wanted to get in. So they go into the service. Now we're at war. This is World War II. I'm going to describe a little bit of what it was like. All the men are leaving, going off to war, one right after another, one right after another. They couldn't get in fast enough. And then the mothers, some of the mothers began to come out of the houses, come out of the homes, and go to work to take the place of the men. See, the men are going away. Somebody's got to work and take the place of the men. So the ladies came out of the house for the first time. Up to that point, ladies didn't come out of the house much. And I remember something strange to me at that time. It's not now. But I remember the first time that I saw a lady wearing long pants. Oh, it created a commotion. We ran and said, look, there's a lady got some long pants on. We never had seen that before. You see, ladies always wore dresses. That's the first time we'd seen that. Now I see all you young ladies most of you got long pants on now. But back then you wouldn't have been doing that. Now at war, what was it like? Well, everybody at your age, 8th graders, you know what we did? We went out and gathered all the scrap iron we could find for the war effort. We'd bring it down to the square in Franklin and pile it on the square to be used for the war effort. Let me move on a little bit more. World War II was like this. If I had to take World War II and add it up and draw a line under it, get my sum of the total, I would say that World War II was exciting, it was romantic, and it was sad. It had everything. Now the saddest part to me was this. When a man would go into service, they would issue 2 dog tags. You see dog tags, you know what they look like. The dog tag that we wore back in those days had a notch in them. Had a little notch in it. And when one of those men would be killed in action, they'd take one of those dog tags with that notch and put it right there between your two incisor teeth right there to stay with the body. Then the other dog tag would go to the War Department so that they could notify the next of kin, which was usually the mother, that this person, either husband or son, had been killed in action. So to me, the saddest was this, when they would send a telegram home. You see, every time anybody would go into service, they'd put a blue star in the window. And we had a blue star in our window. And lots of blue stars went up all over America. But when a telegram would come up the street, the one I remember most was he was on a bicycle. The old man pedaled his bicycle ever so slowly. Now he's got a telegram. Everybody in town knows everybody else, and they know somebody's been killed that they know, they just don't know which one it is. And when he came up our street, we prayed, please don't stop here, because see, my brother was gone. He didn't stop at our house. He went by Miss Josephine Wirt's house, turned right, goes down to the corner of Cummings Street and Margin Street, and stopped at the Terry house. Then we knew that Mac had been killed. Not too long after that, he came up our street again. This time, he stopped at our house. My brother had been killed fighting in Italy. My mother takes down the blue star that she put up for him and put a gold star in his place. Then she puts up another blue star because I'm now going in. I won't go through all that, but anyway, I end up in the infantry. Do you know what the infantry is? That's your walk. You're a foot soldier. You don't ride anything. We used to say this about ourselves. We go by shoe leather express. We walk everywhere we go. We're in the infantry. We're taking our training. You're supposed to have four months or 16 weeks of training. But after the 12th week, young ladies, after the 12th week, we didn't get to 16. After 12 weeks of training, they said, load up on the truck. We're going back into camp. And we didn't understand that. We go back into our camp, and guess what? The company commander says, pack your gear, you're shipping out. Something's happening in Europe. See, they're fighting in the Pacific area, and they're fighting in Europe. So something's happening in Europe that we didn't know about. So they put us on the train, and they ship us out. The next thing I know, that little boy that I was describing to you a few minutes ago of catching rabbits with his hands and squirrels with his hand is now in New York City. I'd never seen anything like that. Those buildings are big. Then we get off the train and we go on a ship. I'd never seen the ocean before, and now I'm in the ocean on a ship. There were 10,000 of us. 10,000 foot soldiers. They're rushing us over there for some reason. Stay with me now, stay with me. I'm going to go where you want me to go, I think. They're rushing us overseas for some reason. I was seasick most of the way, by the way. Landed in Liverpool, England. There's Liverpool. I've read about Liverpool, but here I am. This ship, I'm down on the D deck. That's way down in the bowels of the ship, down next to the water. And the public address system comes on and the man says, get up and get your gear and get in line. We get up, we get in line with our uniform, our gear and guns and weapons and so on. Then he says, take the belt of the man in front of you with your left hand. And I reached out, got his belt, somebody got my belt. And then they turned the lights out. That would be the last time, we didn't know it then, but that would be the last time we'll see lights at night for 6 months. I would not see any more lights for the next 6 months at night. That night when they turned those lights out, that was it. Then we held the belt and we came up out of the ship and finally on deck, it's dark, the Germans are still bombing Liverpool, we're in war. Down the gangplank onto a train down through England, nice daylight, and we're down to Southampton. Southampton's the seaport in the southern part of England. There we get on a LST. Do you girls know what LST means down there? You girls know what LST means? It's a landing craft. I bet you do know it. We went across the English Channel and there's one notice that they let the front down. You've seen pictures of that, haven't you? They let the front down like this, and there's France. I've never seen France either. Remember the little boy growing up right here. Now he's in France, and it's cold, almost freezing to death. Do you know what battle we got involved in by saying that? The Battle of the Bulge. That's why they rushed us over there. They needed foot soldiers. They needed us in a hurry. So they rushed us over there. The next thing I know, we're in a little village in France. Snow, cold. We go upstairs in a little room, try to keep warm, hung a blanket over a window to keep out the cold if we could. Had a little stove. We hovered around it. And we had one man there that I need to tell you about him. His name was Michael Sismary. I'd never heard of a name like that. I'd heard of Jones and Gentry and Smith and all that sort of thing around Franklin. But I never heard the name Michael Sismary. What kind of a name is that? He was from Chicago. He was a Yankee to me. Good guy. He was older than the rest of us, and he had bad language. Oh boy, my mama wouldn't allow him to talk like that. He was tough. My microphone, it did that come back on. He would talk tough. And I thought, well, Michael will whip the German army all by himself. He was that tough. He talked tough. Until the runner came up and said, fall out and draw ammunition. That means we go down and get our extra ammunition. We're going into combat. We're going in maybe to lose our life. He doesn't talk as much now. Let me skip on. They finally, a truck comes up and they put us in the back of a truck. It's night, it's snowing, remember there's no light. They pulled the tarpaulin down, nice total darkness in the truck. It's so quiet and still in that truck that you could hear the other men breathing. And I'm sure they could hear me breathing. And then for the first time I realized that my life might not be very long now. So you know what I did? The only thing you can do when you're in a situation like this, I couldn't rely on Michael. I couldn't really rely on the other men. I went to God. I prayed. God, please take care of me. God, please take care of me. I said it over and over. God, please take care. And he did. Here I am today. God, please take care of me. And he did. I'm here today. The next thing we know, we're dug in, foxhole, you heard, I'm foxhole, nearly freezing. I'm gonna have to skip on here. I don't know how am I doing on time? How much time I got there? I better move on then, we're in foxhole, anyway, snowing, cold, freezing, fighting the Germans, back, blah, blah. And then finally, we go through all that. The nights are eerie, you can't have lights, you can't build fires, you can't get warm. Because if you build a fire, they see you. So let's move on. Then we go, I'm gonna use the expression we use, we jump off. That means we attack. We go after them. We go to places like Wurzburg first. Wurzburg, we walk all day, walk all night, walk all day again to get to the city, fight all day, fight all night, nearly exhausted, not nearly exhausted, exhausted. We lose people. Now I see death firsthand for the first time. Remember the little boy back home. I see death for the first time in my life before my eyes. You're nearly killed yourself. You go through that. Now I'm 18 years old. I'm going to turn 19 here in a few minutes. We go from Wurzburg to places like Arnstein to Schweinfurt. These don't mean anything to you, but something's happening in all these places. Schweinfurt, back to Firth, to Nuremberg, to Buchdorf. Now Buchdorf, my best friend, was killed at Buchdorf. Lieutenant Lindbergh, he was killed at Buchdorf. Then we get down to the place that a place you've heard of it, the Danube River. I don't know whether you've heard the music, the beautiful blue Danube walls. But when we were there, it was not beautiful. It was night, it was black, it was scary, and we crossed the Danube River in rubber rafts, get on the other side. Now the war is practically over because the Germans are beaten. I like to put it this way. I like to say that the war at that time was about like a football game and you're ahead by 4 touchdowns and only 2 minutes left on the clock and it's your ball. You've got it won. We'd already seen death. We'd already seen it. What else could be worse than what we've seen? Then on April the 29th, 1945, 19 years old, I look down and I see something that I don't recognize. It's a big wall, almost as high as these walls here. And there was a train had pulled in through the wall. Some of the boxcars were outside. Obviously, some were inside. We go down not knowing what we are going to find. And there, I saw death in a different way. People with arms and legs no bigger than a broomstick. You could see every rib in their bodies. I didn't know who they were. They had on striped clothes. They were dead, hundreds of them dead. I turned to my buddy, I said, Charlie, who are these people? And he said, they're Jews. I thought of Mr. Turner, the man that I bought my furs from. We go on in, the other troops had already entered. They were on the inside when we got there, some of them were. We go on down into the camp. I'll go through all this. And then we get to the compound where I couldn't believe my eyes. Now you are seated right there, about 150 or 60 of you. There were 30,000 faces peering out through the barbed wire, and they all appeared to be dead. Pitiful people. We had arrived at a place called Dachau concentration camp. And when we released those people, they came out, and some of them would come and hug you. Some would cry, some were screaming, but they'd all fall down on their knees and kiss your legs and kiss your boots. And when they were doing that, someone said, don't let them kiss you on the mouth. And I didn't understand that. I would later on, though. We had just liberated or released Dachau concentration camp. I'm 19 years old, not knowing what I'm seeing. We stayed in that camp for about 2 days. They had already hauled off dead bodies like you would carry away wood or something. Then they took us out in a field nearby, took all of our clothes off, put them in a big pile, poured gasoline on our clothes and burned all of our clothes. Then they shaved all the hair off of our bodies and sprayed us with DDT because some of those prisoners had typhus fever, which is carried by a flea off of a rat. That's why they said, don't let them kiss you on the mouth. I didn't understand that. We go on through the end of the war after that. I'm still not sure what I was seeing. Came back home, married my high school sweetheart, and started living life without talking about this very much. And so I've come around a long ways. I've skipped over some things, but I want to do something else for you now. I just did something with you that I couldn't do 2 weeks ago, and you don't know what I did. I told you about all those people looking through the barbed wire fence, 30,000 of them. I couldn't do that 2 weeks ago, but let me explain what happened to me about 10 days ago. I went back to Germany. We flew back. Took one of my grandsons with me. They're doing a documentary on my life, and this is part of my life. We go back to Dachau. We go back to the concentration camp. It has been 62 years since I was there. 62 years. And when we get back to the camp, guess what? That wall's not there. There's a parking lot there that was not there when I was there. There are trees growing into place that was not there when I was there. It's so different. But as we walked along, I saw part of a wall they had left. And I told my grandson, I said, Jace, I know where I am now. I know what's next. And I was able to tell him. And then when I got to a place where all those faces were that time that I was there 62 years ago, I looked up and I saw it. I knew that I had trouble before. Before, when I would talk to you, I'd have to close my eyes and wouldn't look at you because I didn't want to see faces again. But that day, 10 days ago, I saw the opening to that gate, and it's a little bit like this. I'm going to describe it 2 ways. It's a little bit like being really sick at your stomach and you just throw up all of a sudden. Without any warning, you just throw up. And then you feel better. I didn't throw up. When I saw that gate, though, I broke out into a loud cry. I cried for about 2 or 3, 4 or 5 seconds. Then I took a deep breath. I'm okay now. I got closure there that day, 10 days ago. Now I'm looking at you and I'm not crying. I hadn't got my eyes closed. It's all different now. It's 62 years later. That was Dachau concentration camp in Dachau, Germany. So I was there April 29, 1945. Then I was back there September the 27th, 2007, 62 years later. And I still think about all those people that died there, all the Jewish people that lost their lives. Now, most of those 30,000 that were there that day we released them were not Jews. They were political prisoners, they were gypsies, they were misfits of some sort, but we released all of them. I understand you've been reading Anne Frank's book, is that it? I hope you can pick up something in there that it did happen. And you're looking at a man now that 19 years old walked into that camp. And I had more trouble with it as the years went by, because as I grew older, see, I was 19 when I go in, but as I grew older, I began to realize what life really means to a person. We don't ever want to have something like that happen again. Am I close to my time? Okay, maybe I want to ask a question. Some of you can help me with a question. I might not be able to hear them. If some of you have a question, and I'll attempt to answer it for you. Speak up, hold your hand up, here's one up here.
How many years were you stationed in Europe?
He asked how many years you're in Europe.
I was in the service 2 years. I was over there 18 months. 6 months I was in combat, though.
When were you born?
November 28, 1925. Remember, that's my birthday, and I need a present.
Did you kill anybody in the war?
I don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. I'll back it around for you. I've nearly been killed by somebody else. Anybody else have a question? You've been, yeah.
Go ahead. Were you ever wounded?
Not really. I was knocked unconscious, though, with a ricochet of a bullet off of a tree into my helmet. And I thought I was dead for a few seconds, but I knew I wasn't because I remembered it. By the way, when a bullet goes by your ear, it'll pop. About like taking a rubber band and popping a piece of paper with it. That's what a bullet sounds like when it goes about a half inch of your ear. So that's what was happening to us.
Did you take part in the D-Day invasion?
No, I was not in it. We came in later. It was later.
After you left the camp, were you stationed somewhere else, or did you go home?
After the camp?
After the camp.
Well, see, that was April the 29th, 1945. The war ended May the 7th. Just about 10 days later, the war was over. So we went to Tittmoning, Germany. I can tell you all about that, but we went to Tittmoning, Germany, and the war ended while we were there. Oh, let me tell them one quick story. I made myself think of you did. Tittmoning, Germany is up on the Salzach River. You know, you don't have to know where these places are. On the Salzach River, and the war ended, so they put us in truck and took us down to Salzburg, Austria. Are you listening? In Salzburg, we were sitting up on a bank, and there's a little dirt road that came out of Salzburg. And I looked down, and I saw a lady, an old little lady, pulling a wagon. Now the war's over. She was pulling the wagon and it had sticks piled up on it because they didn't have any fuel then. And there was a man walking behind the wagon. This is where my mama comes back in now. And when they got near me, right below me, the wagon hit a pothole. The wagon turned over and the sticks scattered all over the road. That man went berserk. He went wild. I thought he was going to hit that lady. He was screaming at her, making her pick him up. I get up and go down there and make him load the wagon. And the last time I saw him, he was pulling the wagon and she was walking behind it, because my mama said, respect all ladies. I could talk to you forever about my mother. She taught that one lesson. I remember that just as well. I made that right to load the wagon. Anything else?
How did you go through all that stress? How did you go through all the stress?
How'd you handle all the stress?
Well, I don't know. I've not been much on stress getting to me. When you have a job to do, go on and do it. I was glad to get the war over with, of course, glad to come home, but I didn't have a lot of problem with that. Some people might have, but I didn't.
Anybody else?
There's one right here.
Did you have dogs in the foxhole with you?
Have a what?
Dogs in the foxhole.
Dogs? No, I have to leave my dog at home. They won't let you take a dog with you.
Michael. Big guy. How, are you married?
Yes, married, and that prettiest little girl in the world. Our romance lasted 63 years, and she passed away 16 months ago. 3 sons and 5 grandchildren. They're all down on the farm right now.
What high school did you graduate from?
Franklin High School, 1943, I believe it was.
And he was a coach at Brentwood Academy for how long?
Well, the first 15 years was at Franklin High School.
Yeah.
Then the second 15 was at BGA, and 23 at Brentwood Academy.
And he coaches at Franklin High right now.
Yeah.
Our Spanish teacher, Miss O'Donnell, said you coached her son.
Miss Ordung said you coached her son, and you actually coach with her husband right now.
Yeah. I know
She's
who
our
you are.
Spanish teacher.
Oh, yeah.
There she is.
I coach her daddy. Her daddy, not her
Her
son.
daddy.
Her daddy. Yeah, I
Her
see
son
her
now.
now.
Her son now.
Yeah.
Have you ever talked to anybody that was in the camp that you liberated?
Yes, 2 people. One of them after the war in Italy, and then I could tell you a wild story here that, see, a screenplay's been written off of my book, and there's a man that as I said, I didn't want to talk about this for a long, long time, and he found me after 40 years, and he was one of those. He's not living now, neither one of them are living now, but yes, 2 people.
What was romantic about the war?
Well, the romance about the war is this, and my wife and I would be a good example of it, one side of it. The young men back then and the young ladies would decide, do we marry before you go into the service, or do you marry when you come out, if you come back? We decided, if I come home, we'll marry. Others married before they left, and some of them were killed. So that's the romance, the letters back and forth during the war. And by the way, the only thing that we had in the infantry to look forward to was a letter from home. And that's all you had, was a letter from home. Boy, that was the greatest thing in the world. It's not like now. There's no computers, no cell phones. A letter would take maybe 3 weeks to get to you. So that's the romance right there. It was a romantic time, because the men were away, or they were going away, or they were coming back. The ladies were waiting for them, or vice versa. So that was the romance.
Well, I want to ask you one thing. You obviously have a lot of wisdom from your experiences, so you could just sort of sum up the last thing here. What advice would you give these students as 8th graders that you've learned through all your experiences that you feel like will help them in life?
I was asked that question by a lady from Arizona. She's in the film business. She asked me, what did you get out of releasing those prisoners? And I told her this, I didn't hesitate. I got this out of it, and I hope that you get this too. Is after that liberation, after seeing all those pitiful people and all those dead people, because they were Jews or because they were misfits, something's wrong with them. I now have a respect for everybody. I respect everybody, no matter what color they are, no matter how fat they are, no matter how skinny they are, how pretty they are, how ugly they are. They're human beings. They're God's creation. I respect everybody. Doesn't make any difference. And I could follow up on that, and I like to do this. Before, I'm gonna end with this. If I got just a couple more minutes, I want to say some things to you. I want to say it twice though. So the first time, I'm going to say this from me to you. Are you listening? Try to remember these. I'm going to give you the 5 most important words in the world in the English language. I am proud of you. The 4 most important words. May I help you? The 3 most important words. I love you. The 2 most important words. Thank you. And before I give you the most important word, I'll give you the least important word. That's I. The most important word is we. Now let me do that again. This time, would it be great 20, 30 years from now, God could look down on you and say, I am proud of you? God could look down and say, may I help you? God would look down and say, I love you. God could look down and say, thank you. God could look down and say, we can do all things through him to give us the strength. Thank you. You've been a good audience. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good. Nice.
I'm Dawn Coach, and I grew up in Williamson County.
Okay.
And I'm 50 years old, and I remember a lot of these things you're talking about Franklin.
Good.
I remember Willa Plunge.
Yeah, good.
I think we're looking at autograph seekers.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Palmer, she's the teacher that's been teaching and praying.
Have you? I hope that's some help to you.
So inspirational.
Tie it together a little bit.
It's Mr. Bass, he's the principal here.